Hi friends, and welcome to my weekly stream about the live coding of the Uno platform. I'm spending about a an hour doing some development around the Uno platform, and uh, and today we're going to be talking about a few things around warnings in XAML generated code and a few other things around XAML resources XAML resources on attached properties. Um, let's discuss a little bit about the latest news about the Uno platform. We published a few things around web games, and it's a contributor that has been creating a 2D web game using the Uno platform. It's actually quite interesting. So details about how the game was developed and what it is doing, and you can even play it directly on the on the website. It has been published as a as an app here. And I'm not good at games, but it's actually improved since last time, so that's nice. And I don't think you will have the sound, but I can. Oh, that's evolved quite a bit, and you can have kind of your game here, and all developed in using Uno. So that's pretty nice. There's different sounds, and it explains what needs to be done with to be able to create a game like this with the Uno platform. So that's nice. Take a look at the article and give it a try and see if you can do something similar with your apps, or if you're developing a game. So it's an interesting use of Uno platform for this. Um, on the other things that we were discussing recently, it's the errors that were created when developing an application using WPF and .NET 6. And there were if you were building a Skia WPF application, you were having thousands of error messages that were showing up, and those were quite problematic. And Microsoft made a change in their latest SDK, and that caused that issue. It's not something that Uno had anything to do with, but because Uno is using source generators, and then the issue was related to this, then when you were building your application, it would start doing that kind of thousand of issues. So if you update Uno to the latest 4.4.20 that was published yesterday, this is gone. But you can also, if you can't update or having similar issues, you have a Haven DB here that posted a workaround for this, where basically you have to filter, you include this in your project file, and will avoid having analyzers getting duplicated. So that's the fix that you can make. So just so you know, if you're getting there, it's going to be included in future versions of Uno as well. And you may have seen also, if you're following a little bit more closely what we're doing, we have an issue that has been created because of the use of Uno platform on iOS devices, especially on iOS 16. And it happens that, and it's not clear exactly where that is, but there's an issue where if you have a text box and you click on a text box, the application will crash pretty much. So that's a pretty low level issue that has a relation with what iOS is doing with text boxes, or UI text views underneath. And so we have a fix for this that has been ported to Uno 4.4. It's included in 4.4.20. So if you have an application that's been deployed there, just so you know, you may need to upgrade, otherwise your application will be crashing. You will be seeing this. I think we have search for iOS 16 here. You have iOS 16 beta crash with text blocks. Considering that iOS 16 is going to be published next week, most likely. There were invites to the iOS event on September 7th. That means that there's going to be a new release of iOS, and it's unlikely that anything that is related to this will be fixed in iOS. So if you have an application that's been deployed on the store, you will need to upgrade to a later version of Uno. And that's it for the news around Uno platform, or Uno UI specifically. There are a few other things that are happening, but it's upcoming for the next few weeks. Now let's go take a look at the issues that we were having. So an Uno user reported that when they are using a specific property in Uno, especially if it's in the Xaml, then there are messages that says that there are warnings about the use of non-implemented properties, and that causes some issues because they want to remove those warnings, and because it's in generated code, they cannot modify that code. So let's go take a look at that specific issue and see if we can troubleshoot that in Uno. So first, what we're going to do is take the repro, and because the customer, the Uno user, was kind enough to create a repro, and let's see if we can get that to run properly. So we're going to be going to the latest preview of Visual Studio because we like living dangerously. And I've been actually opening quite a few issues on the reporting tool here, like with the fact that there are some slowdowns that have been happening since the newer release, which need to be changed. But so we'll see. There's David Keane from the .NET team, from the Visual Studio team, that's been looking at those issues and found a few interesting things, it seems. So we'll see if there's a new preview that has some fixes with the performance of the Solution Explorer. So that's what I found. Oh, I see there's Jose that asked a question. So the question is, can we use Uno platform, the Windows ARM and Visual Studio 2022 for ARM? The computer is a MacBook with Apple M1. So I don't have an M1 to test with, or at least no one that has Windows on it. My guess would be that the targets that are supported by Visual Studio, mostly .NET, which is probably what you're looking at, is something that will work. Now the thing is that I don't know if Xamarin will work with it. Maybe. It depends on the target. So let me know which target is the one that you're interested in. Is it for GTK? Is it something else? I don't know. So you want to, so question is, can we deploy Uno platform apps to Windows ARM? I don't know. So what type of apps do you want to deploy? Is it a GTK app? Is it the WASM app? Is it, I don't know. So it depends. And but otherwise, I don't know. It's I haven't tested it, so I can't tell you. If you're able to test it, let me know. If you have any kind of warnings, issues, errors, or anything like that, let us know. Create a discussion on our GitHub, and we'll take a look. Well, anyone is not enough, unfortunately. You will have to specify which one that is. So take a look at if you want to develop any of those, the targets that we have, individually. Let us know if anything works or not. Okay, so let's go to our issue here. To see if we can repro the fact that the warnings are showing up at the wrong locations. So if I build the application using the WebAssembly target, what do I get? So we have duplicate references here. This is new. Okay, so we have a warning here that shows up, and it says character spacing property is not implemented in Uno. Okay. So that's good to know. Which version is used? It's a development build, so latest build, which is good, which means that it has not been fixed yet. And that means that it will be probably in a style. So, okay, so we have a style here. So we're setting a character spacing property directly in a style, and it looks like we're not having the right code generation that happens to ignore those messages. So what we suggested is the use of a property that's called Xaml generator analyzer suppressions, and basically allows for the generator to include things like this in the generated code, though I'm not too sure if it's the exact syntax. So we're going to have to take a look at the generated code to validate that the code is the right one. So Oh, that's new. That works better. It looks like it changed. Okay, so if we go in a resource dictionary, do we have Uno at the top? Okay, so it's not there at all. So it would have been generated at that location, but it's not available. So maybe it could be something with the documentation that's not right. So let's go in the original documentation. I think I posted a link to the source generation, to adding different pragmas, and it's supposed to be something that looks like this. Let's see if I add that manually. Does it pick up the change? So if I rebuild, do I have the Uno getting included in that particular generation? So if I reopen the file, no, it's not there at all. Okay, so interestingly, there are some of those that are already there, and those are included by Uno. So if we take a look at the build logging, we should be able to see. So I enabled the build logging, and if you knew, this is something that's very useful if you want to troubleshoot any kind of .NET development tool. And I'm saying this every time, probably repeating it. It's probably going to be annoying if people that are watching every time. But if you want to have this installed in your Visual Studio, search for Project System Tools and install this. It will give you two new entries, build logging and build log message lists. And then you have this window that shows up, press the record button. And then once your build is done, you can go and open log in external, and it will give you this. So you will need to install the MS Build Structure Log Viewer, which is a separate tool. It will give you a lot of information about what's happening in your application. Now, if I search for this specifically, I would guess that it is included automatically it's included automatically. Okay, so we have a property here that contains quite a few things. It has to be beginning with something like this, I would guess. Okay, so let's try again. So it's probably that the documentation is not good enough, or it's not clear. It has to be C# dash in front. Okay, so let's see. If I change this and I put C# in front, what does my there you go. There it is. Okay, so it's not clear. Probably the format is not the right one. It's generating something different. I would guess that if I'm not adding the C# in front, it's probably adding it somewhere else and completely ignoring it. Yes, it's ignoring it. So that means the format is okay. Okay, so it has to be prefixed with C# dash, so that the generated code here contains the proper warning here included at the top. And when we do a rebuild, we're gonna get the error is going to will be removed. So that, there you go. And this is something that happens. So okay, so that's another one. So we fixed the first one, and it's a documentation issue. So that means that we're going to have to change this and add the right wording to say that C# dash is needed. Otherwise, it happens to go into the system code analysis suppress messages that are in here. But even then, if the format's not the right one, it doesn't do anything. So that's not good. So we're gonna have to change. So the second part is, so when you see this message, it says duplicate package reference items not found. And this is something that actually comes from the Uno Bootstrapper. It's something that we have not changed yet, but it comes from here. So let me show you what that is. So there's a property, and I think it's part of the documentation, but I don't recall where that is. So let's go find that in the code. So we're in the Bootstrapper, and we need to go into the Uno Bootstrapper, Uno Bootstrap project here. Then you go into the build, and then there's the targets here. And then inside, lost somewhere in the middle, there's a property that's called wasm shell include Windows compatibility. So I'm just going to look for this particular string. No, it's not documented. So I probably did not document it on purpose because it's something that we're going to be enabled in .NET 7 by default. It's something that is quite important for projects that are currently using .NET 6. And one of the reasons is that when you're taking a look at your C# project, you have this inclusion here. And the thing is that if you remove, you can remove it, but if you remove it, then there are things that will not compile properly. The thing is that the Uno bootstrapper also adds one itself, and it kind of overrides a few things here and doesn't work properly. So what you can do to avoid that message and still keep this and bump the version to be, let's say 7, for instance, or 6, for that matter, because we're building for 6 here, is to add that property at the top. And you say false instead, and that will remove the warning and stop the double inclusion of this there. So it only happens to work with the Uno Bootstrapper 4, and I think we're probably going to be removing backporting this to the previous version so that people can actually change them by themselves. But that's the idea. So if I, let's say, bump this to I bump the Bootstrapper to latest version, you will be able to see that error will go away. So let's do this here. Let's bump the Bootstrapper. And if we do a rebuild, we're not going to get that error message anymore because now the double inclusion is not there. Is not there. So it's just a warning. It's just Visual Studio telling you you have twice the same package. It's not useful. Remove one of those definitions, but it doesn't break anything at this point. So that's something that is good to know. Okay, so we found we solved the mystery here for the C# here that's missing. So two things that we could do. We could actually go and take a look at the implementation for that part specifically, because it looks like we're missing something here. So we have C# here. So let's go take a look at the location where we're processing those analyzer exclusions. So let's go find where that is used. So it's used in the props here, and it's included as a property that is named Uno. Okay, so it's not exactly named that way, so it should be named that way. It should be in the C#, the C# generator. So we have a Xaml code generation. So we have one here. And so what we're doing is getting the MS Build property that it's called Xaml generator analyzer suppression property. It's a mouthful, but it's important to have something that looks that explains exactly what the property is. And it's putting it as a list of strings here, and we're processing that list somewhere else. So let's go figure out what we're doing with that list. So it's analyze the suppressions here, and we're doing something that is called generate C# pragma suppressions. And what are we doing what are we doing here? Okay, so we're saying if it's okay, so we're explicitly looking for C# as a category with a dash in front. So we have name category, but we're not saying that if we're not recognizing anything, we're not doing anything about it. So there's a second location where we're actually doing processing those. And let's find that part. So we have analyzer suppressions. So we have an analyzer suppression generator, which is different because this one adds attributes specifically on the class and not as a top as top level statements. And let's go take a look at this one. So we have this one which generates, so we're excluding C# categories, but we're supposed to be splitting those. So if the parts are not two, so okay, so we probably should be analyzing those where parts are not two to say that that we can't do anything about it. Yeah, let's go take a look at this. So let's make a change for this to say if we're adding something around, so if we're adding a suppression that is not of the right format and has only one, then we need to say something. So write something in a code that says that the suppression was not the right one, or it was not in the right format. So for this, it's pretty much taking the same list, but say that if the parts are less than 2, then we are going to write a message. And there you go. So we're going to be selecting the suppression. So suppress, the string is the suppression itself. And we're going to say that the specific message is not the right one. And invalid suppression. And we're going to be writing a pragma warning, I would guess. That would probably be enough. Say that we have that format for the suppression that's not the right one. So to do this, we just take the environment line here and we do something like that. Warning, and we're going to say we have to take the exact name for the analyzer suppression. And let's put that. And if we're doing this like this, so if we're adding a message in directly in the C#, we have to make it externable. So we can say that, let's say you're missing a dash or a pipe to specify the format. So that will be category and it will be code. Let's say code like this. I cannot say warning because it can be anything else. It's not necessarily a warning. It can come for any kind of generated code, so that would be different. So let's use that way. Let's use it that way for now. So I'm doing this. It's an easy piece of code, but I'm just doing this so we can go back to the application here and test the change that we made and making sure that it does the right thing. So one of the things that we're not doing yet, and we have an upcoming change that will allow to do this, is that we're not able yet to make changes to validate breaking conditions in the code generator. And it's actually a problem because we're not validating the wrong paths. And that's something that was difficult to do previously using Roslyn, but now is getting easier to do. And we have a PR that's opened that will change that, so that we're going to be able to validate that as unit tests and not just make it run in a second app to validate that it works. So to change the target of this application, what we're going to do is we're going to change the NuGet override. So to go back here, we're going to go to the folder view and show all files. We're going to take the file here that's called cross-targeting override props, which is created from this one. And we're going to be changing the version number here to the version that the application target is using. So the one that we're using here, and let's remove this for now. So we're going to be able to test it right away. So the application is using Uno 45645. So when we do this, then we come back to the solution here. So I was using the WebAssembly target, if I remember correctly. Then if I rebuild parts of Uno, so it can be the generators or Uno itself or a few other parts like this, and what we're interested in is just the generator. I'm going to be building the generator here. And what you will see is that in the generation, the build output, you will see messages like overriding NuGet package cache, and then it says the path of the files that are being overridden. So we can see here that 450 dev 645 is actually being overridden, and because it's the same version as the one that's here, we should be seeing now that the code that we did is tentatively going to fail the right way to say that we're not having the right message. Okay, so there you go. So it says nothing. It says nothing. So maybe we did it the wrong way. So let's go and troubleshoot the generator to see, why are we getting this. So one of the things that we can do is enable the debug logging, the debugging for the generators. So to do this, you can find one thing that's particularly interesting, which is debugging the tooling here. And to do this, there's a property for search for debug. You can add this property to your project. And what that will do is that will, at the beginning of the Xaml source generation, it will do a debug break. And it will allow you to attach to the process that runs the generators. And it will allow you to do some more precise debugging of the application or the generators or the code that you changed. So let's do this again. If I build, you can see now that I have the Visual Studio that's breaking the right location. And I'm not opening the right Visual Studio, of course. Let me try that again. So I want to open Uno and not the test app. Doesn't make sense. And you will see that the break point is at the location for which there is no code, there's no symbol. So the reason for that is probably because just my code is enabled. I'm probably gonna have to change that. So if I go to debugger, is just my code enabled? Just my code is not enabled. So if I'm not getting anything here, it could be because the symbols are not at the right location. Could be that. Ah, that's why. Okay, so you can see here that VB's compiler is using a cache, and that's a problem. So let's see if I continue, do I get a different? Okay, so that is actually new. So maybe I can hook onto the second one. Ah, there you go. Okay, so the first one was actually coming from Visual Studio itself because it was running from another type of location and there were no symbols there. But in that context, I do have the symbols. So now I can see that the break is actually done at that location, and I can go to my piece of code here for the suppressions and see if I'm getting the right things. Maybe it's because of the way I wrote warning here is not working properly, could be, or maybe it's something else. So let's see. No, it's still not working. So maybe I'm not using the right one. So I know that Visual Studio is doing some advanced caching now, and maybe it's caused by this. So what we're going to do is close that solution and try again. This is actually something that's new with regards to the way caching, Visual Studio is doing caching. I don't know if it's related to performance or other pieces, but it's likely that it's the case. So if I rebuild, okay, still not good for that location. So the interesting thing is that it says that it's VBCS compiler. So in general, that should be enough for the tooling to allow for the loading, but it looks like it's not good enough. Okay, so if it's not doing what we need, we can do it from the command line. Let's do it from the command line because Visual Studio is not going to do anything with regards to how debugging should be happening. So note that I'm using 17.4, so that may be related. So let's do a .NET build instead in the command line so that we don't only have one process to look out for and not the whole suite of processes that Visual Studio is playing with. So, okay, so I can't, so I was attached to the other one, so I was missing it. So let's do it again. Ah, okay, so I need to do a clean before, otherwise I'm not gonna get anything. Okay, so I have Uno this time. Let's see if I do have my symbols. I don't have symbols anymore either. Is it, so where is the file coming from? Okay, so let's see. So it's still loaded in a temp folder. So it may be something that's new to Visual Studio 17.4. So we may go to a different version, but this one is, well, maybe it's the latest version of .NET 6. This is something that's changed. It's very new. So what we're going to do this time, so is just hint to the location of the symbols. It's going to be easier. So open this instance, and it doesn't know where to find the symbols. So we're going to go and find those symbols at the right location. I wish that the debugging experience for generators was a lot easier to work with. It's changed significantly in the past few versions, and it's getting difficult to get that running easily. Okay, so I have the symbols here. Okay, so that's not the, so we're talking about net standard 1, so that's not the one we're looking for. We need to go up a bit. We have tools, source gen. No, it's not the one, that one either. Okay, so maybe it's loading a previous version of the binary. And that could be why we're not getting anything. Okay, so let's go find if there's a path that we can clean. Let's go find this out. So the location of the assembly is here, and maybe I could drop it. Drop the path. So if I move up a bit, I'm just going to clear the cache completely. It's in the temp folder, so let's remove the whole. It doesn't remove everything. It's loaded. Okay, let's close this part. Is it still loaded? Okay, so most of it is still loaded, so that's not good either. Yeah, it's getting difficult to troubleshoot those because the loader is not the right one. So let's see. Let's see. Maybe it's because we still have MS build running. Let's do this. We're killing all msbuild.exe. Okay, so there isn't any. So maybe it's our Visual Studio. Maybe that has Uno. Nope, still there. Okay. So do I have another Visual Studio running that would cause this to stay in memory? No, I don't have this. There's nothing here. No. No, it's still loaded by something. So let's see. There's anything else that that locks those files. Maybe there's a .NET something. There's still a .NET process that runs there. You could probably use the tooling from Mark Rusinovich for getting the name of the files, but you know, it's not the right one. Yeah, it's not the same caching that that you can see here. It's not debugging per se. It's the fact that the assembly that's loaded by Roslyn itself is not the right one. It's not it's one that has been loaded before, and it's not using the right one. So we need to change that one. So this is, there's a .NET process that runs here. Maybe it's that one. Ah, okay. So we have one left, and there's still something that's running that shouldn't be there. So do we have something from Visual Studio that's running here? Visual Studio, we have this Diagnostics Hub. Probably not the right one. What else do we have from Visual Studio? Don't have much. That's interesting. It's probably locked by something else that we don't see. Okay. So I'm not going to be rebooting in the middle of a stream, so that's not something that would make sense. But you get the idea, for now at least. I don't know. There's probably another process that does that, so we'll look for that in a separate thing. But the idea is that you can go normally and debug your analyzers that way. But it looks like Visual Studio has changed the way they're doing it, so the techniques to go and debug those tools is not working properly. Okay, so it doesn't change anything. We have we should be able to do warnings from Xaml code. So suppressions, invalid warnings, and let's store that somewhere. Now we're gonna go take a look at the other issue. We have 20 minutes. Should be fine. So the second issue is the support for XAML resources for attached properties. Okay, so the idea here is that you can have a button that has a UID, and it automatically will find the properties that are for that specific UID and apply them to whichever property is available defined in the resource file. And that is definitely not supported at this time in Uno, though we're supporting XUID for normal properties, but not attached properties. So you can see here that there's a specific syntax that's available where you can have so your UID, then the namespace of the property, the namespace of the type of the property, or the owner type of the property, and then the property name. And we're gonna go take a look at how we can change that and have this result. So for this kind of feature, we can use the unit testing part of Uno. We don't need to go inside of a larger application that may be heavier to load. So we can go and use the Nets 461 target framework override, and then open the solution using the specific filter that is for unit tests. So you can see it here. And then we're going to add a specific test to find out how we can implement this. So there are two locations where we need to be resolving XUIDs. I don't think we're resolving UIDs when we're developing for or actually loading files using the XAML reader, though it's probably something that we may want to do at some point. But the one that we're particularly interested in is the one that is using the normal XAML reader, which is done when doing a standard XAML reading. So when you have a file on your project and then you're loading the file, at runtime. So that's the idea. So we have a resource. We have resource tests, but those are not the ones that we want to have. So that's we have a resource loader, but that's not the ones that we want, because resources, the specific names, that's something that we can find very easily. But what we want to find is the ones that are specifically tailored for the XAML loading. So that's not where we're going to find them. I think that will be found in XML explicitly. So we have theme resources, resource dictionary. We're probably going to be having XUID somewhere. Let's see if we have markup. XUID tests. There you go. Okay, so we have XUID tests here. And we only have one test, because the rest is something, many things that we're testing at runtime using another type of unit testing. We have at least 4 types of tests in Uno. We have unit tests. We have XAML validation tests that are actually compile time tests that we're validating specific scenarios. We have snapshot tests. Those are run by the target platforms, and we're taking screenshots of the individual screens that we've developed along the years and making sure that the content of those screenshots compared to the previous version of a build doesn't change too much or at all. Then there are UI tests, and those are automated UI tests when there's an engine outside of the app that does interaction with the app. So tapping on buttons, scrolling, swiping, typing on the keyboard and things like that. So as a user would do. And then we have what are called runtime tests. And those runtime tests are unit tests, but running inside of the app using the target runtime, so on individual targets. So if you're running on WebAssembly, and those unit tests are going to be running inside of the app as WebAssembly. But in some cases, it's not useful to get there because you have to build the app, deploy the app, and things like that. So making unit tests using your specialized trimmed down version can make it easier to troubleshoot issues. So what we're going to do is create a second file here that is called attach property test, and we're going to be validating that we're loading the right content at the right location. So I'm going to be duplicating the file here, and that's because of a bug in the performance of Visual Studio here. When you're duplicating files in a large project, I don't want to spend too much time here. So attached when XUID with and attach property. That's it. So there you go. I'm going to be renaming a few things here. So we don't need any converter. It's not useful there. And changing the class name at the top of the XAML file. Okay, so what we need here is pretty much what the repro says here, which is creating a button at the root of the document. And we're not going to be specifying anything here, just use a basic UID that way. And we're going to be adding that specific resource. And we do have resources defined here. I think they're in strings. Let me find those out. I don't recall where they are. So we have resources. That's not that one. We have resources here, so we're gonna pick up those ones instead. Even if it's in the resource loader, that makes it easier to work with at this point. Okay, so we're gonna be using just the English one. There's no point in going to the other one. And still tip. Oh, interesting. It overlaps. So we need the actual complete one and not just something that's not long enough. It's too long. Interesting, it wraps, but it doesn't give us a... Oh, okay, so we can resize. Okay, so we have open button video using tooltip service and tooltip, and then we're going to say localized value. Okay. So now that we have the file, the only thing that we need to do is just build and see if we're getting something. Actually, let's go write the full test and see we can get that right. Okay, so given XUID, and our test would be when attached property. Let's call it that way for now. It's when XUID and attached property. We're going to get the button in the middle. So we have to give it a name. Otherwise we can't get to it easily. We have to make the field visible, otherwise we can't get it from the outside. And it's button one. So what we need here is to have sut.button1 and so we need to do, so it's button one, but since it's a tooltip service, we have to go and do tooltip service dot get tooltip, and that's probably enough. I think that's what we're setting in the ResW. So tooltip, and it has to be a localized value. Okay, so we're getting tooltip and has to be exactly that value. Okay. So let's build and see what we get. So while it's building, let's go take a look at the location where we're processing this specific localized value. And we're probably going to find that it's actually really not implemented. So it will be in Xaml file generator. And if we search for let's go search for UID. Okay, so we have an XUID here. So is it the right location? Maybe. So we say if it's localized, so that is not localized. So if it's localized, we're doing okay, so localized value is interesting. Okay, so that's going to be something very interesting. So we're saying that we have to create for all the objects that are inside the localized values of each of those properties. So the interesting thing is that you can set the localized values that way. So you set the UID, and then based on what's inside the ResW file, then the properties are going to be automatically defined. So you don't need to have the property being defined in the XAML for it to be localized. That makes the generation a bit more complicated because you have to go through the properties and determine if it's available or not. So we're going to have to find that specific support, but I'm not seeing it here. So I'm going to have to find it somewhere else. So we get object UID. So is it a UID? Let's see. I have UID member. You have the setx UID. You have the mapping here. No, it's not that. It's custom markup extension. Okay, so we can do it the other way around. So let's take a look at. I don't know. I don't find it here. So we're gonna walk our way through back to the code that does that. So in here, the assert failed, and you can see that the actual value is null, which means that it didn't work. So I'm gonna go take a look at the generated code. If it's there. I'm not seeing it here, so that means that the generated code is placed somewhere else. Oh, no, not looking at the right location. So analyzers, generators here, Xaml generators. So the one we're looking for is when XUID and attached property. XUID and attached property. There it is. Okay, there's nothing inside. What did I miss? There's a stack panel. Is it? Am I looking at the right thing? Xaml code generator. Okay, so if there's nothing in it, it means that the tooling for generation is removing the contents because it's detecting it is detecting that it is inside. It is inside Visual Studio, so that's not how we can validate that it's generating the right code. Let's go do it in another app for now. Let's take the other app and see what we can find. So let's say that we do, so we have our text block here. Let's put an XUID on it. Let's call it test. And we're going to do test.tag. And we say that it's hello. So if we write it that way, we're going to have a piece of code that is going to be setting the tag manually. Probably going to be removing the fact that the debugger is running for this particular project. So the build finished. Let's take a look at the generated code. So in the main page, we should be having a text block, and do we have tag here? I wonder if we have a larger problem, because you can see here that it's not setting tag. So I wonder it's if we actually not parsing the resource file to set the content properly. So it may be that we have a bigger issue to fix. So let's say we do this. We change just the tag manually. Do we have something different that shows up? So we are not having anything here. If I rebuild, do I have something different? Maybe. Okay, tag is still not set. Maybe you just need to set a value to it. Could be that we're not doing anything because the value is not set. Interesting. Okay, I'm not seeing tag generated here, so maybe the file is not getting regenerated properly. It's not so that part with the generators, to see the generated code is difficult to work with. It's probably something new that's started to happen, and it's not giving us any details about what the generated code is doing. So we're missing something there. Okay, so let's try again and see if we have that. Otherwise, we're going to fall back to the UNO generation, source generation frameworks, which actually does provide all those. Okay, so we can see there's the tag here. Okay, so we can see that the tag is generated, and we have a markup that generates the tag, so get resource string for XUID. So now if I go back to back here and I remove that, are we still generating? Are we still generating the right code? I'm not too sure, but let's see if we have that properly. So the build worked. Do we still have the text? Okay, so we still have the tag. It's still probably because of the fact that the project is not regenerating the content here. So let's try it again one more time. Okay, so it's still generated, but could it be because I'm not closing the solution completely? So let's do it. Let's do it safe and restart this, reload the solution completely. So still gonna get to dependencies analyzers and open that file. And do we still have the tag? Okay, so we still do have the tag. So that means that we're still parsing the resources. I thought we didn't have that. So that was implemented properly. So that means that we're actually looking for something interesting here, but we're not. We actually parse the resource files to determine which markup needs to be set on this. And okay, so I can see that attached property is supported. So you see, I went back to find what we were generated to work back through to the location where we're actually using that feature. And what we can see here is that we're actually supporting the attached property syntax. And I wonder if we're doing something with maybe it's the path that's not the right one. So maybe it's because we're using a specific syntax. So for instance, if you take a look at the issue that was opened, the path was done that way. So if there was a EULA view, which is the qualifier for a separate file. So maybe that's that. Let's test it quickly in our Uno sample app here. See if we actually can set that value correctly. So let's say I do test and it sets the tooltip. And let's go take a look at what code is generated for this. If we can get the right file to be generated. Okay, so we have tag that is generated here, but it's not generating for the other one. Maybe. Okay, so just to be sure that we're actually regenerating every time, so I'm going to add a second tag, or let's say I will do what kind of other property we can set here. Let's say I'm going to set a margin, just to say that we have a value that's being actually read from the file. Otherwise, we're going to be having something weird. Okay, so let's read it again. Let's see, do we have margin? So we do have margin has been set. We have the tag that's being set, but it's not parsing the fact that there's another property that's available there. So maybe it's the format of the resource that's not the right one. So we're expecting something specific. So I didn't put the dot in front, so maybe that's that. So I can see here that I missed it. Maybe it's the dot here. Because it's not the right format, so it doesn't find anything. It could be that. So we have still set XUID. We don't have anything else. Just to make sure that we're actually regenerating everything. Let's change this to say that we don't have the margin set properly. I actually wonder if it's caused by the fact that I'm not modifying any C# file. I wonder if it's related to this. So we still have The margin was set already before, so maybe that's not the right way to test it. So let's rebuild again. Let's see. Otherwise, I'm going to reload the file and see if we have something different. Okay, so we don't have anything different. So let's reload the solution again. We go to analyzers. Okay, so we still have the tag. We don't have the margin, which is interesting, but I didn't set it. So yes, I set margin, but didn't parse it. And we don't have the other one as either. Okay, so definitely not working properly. We have tag that's valid for some reason. Let's do for the last few minutes. We have a property that's defined somewhere in Uno that allows to get to the original source generation tooling from Uno, which doesn't have all the issues that you've seen here, which is about the reloading of files. So the files are always generated at the same place. It's just a bit slower than the embedded .NET tooling, but it's more reliable when generating files. So let's do it like this. So there's a difference now when building that way. There's in the ops folder, you're going to find a G folder, which contains more files and including some generated files. And the one that we're going to find here is a few others. And we can see that when we change something, it should be regenerating every time and not partially like we're having it right now. So I find interesting that margin doesn't work. Probably not doing anything interesting, but maybe we're having parsing issues. Let's see. We do it that way. So if I rebuild, I should be having a different file this time. So you can see that the file was removed and then regenerated. I should be having something different now. Okay, so I don't have the tag because I removed it. I don't have the margin for some reason, and I don't have the tooltip either. So that is interesting. So maybe I think we're using, maybe it's because it's using we're using the WinUI tooling. So maybe it's because of that. Let's see. So the margin not working is interesting. It's not supposed to do this, but let's try again. Maybe it's because the namespace is not the right one. No, still not picking it up. Okay, so we know that we've iterated a few times to get to a point where we know where the code is. We know that it's supposed to be working, but for some reason it's not. So next time we're going to be trying to troubleshoot where that part is coming from and why we're not getting anything out of that specific piece of code. So that's it for today. I think I thought you I think I would think you learned a few things today. It was interesting for me too. I found a few things around attached properties and others. So I would find it interesting, and next time we're going to be able to find a few more about this. And we found also a few things about the generation of warnings and the fact that the documentation is not the right one. So we're going to be adjusting the documentation so that it looks better and that people don't stumble upon implicit things that are not the right one. So I see Jose as a suggestion. Visual Studio on ARM, I don't have an ARM device, and I'm definitely not going to have one for next week. So that's not probably not going to be it. But if you wanna do something about it for next week, and let us know by that time, yes, please go ahead. So until next week, happy coding. Bye for now.